Welcome to this ranking video of the 10 greatest violin concertos of all time. If you don't know the drill, I mark every movement out of 10, score an average for the whole piece, rank the works, and am then amazed when the marks don't match my assumptions, whatever form of cognitive bias that is. Talking of knowing, or not knowing, I'm willing to bet you won't guess my number one. In fact, the piece at 10th might surprise you too. People forget this is a violin concerto. In fact, all four of the four seasons are violin concertos, reminding me of that rather unfair Stravinsky quote that Vivaldi wrote the same concerto 600 times. Well, that first movement of Winter is pretty unique in music. Yes, I know it's way overplayed now, but that's because it is actually brilliant. At 9th, we have equal 9th, and in fact, two of the most famous and celebrated violin concertos ever composed. Firstly, like many composers, Tchaikovsky only wrote one violin concerto. They are hard to compose. This one has a brilliant first movement, from violin as well as orchestra. The violinist Josef Kotek and Tchaikovsky are rumoured to have had an affair, certainly before they wrote this, but this first movement really does feel like a physical romantic relationship in action. Perhaps the final two movements are a little anticlimactic after all the sensual pleasure of the first, but next, at equal 9th, comes an even more famous violin concerto. This low, what could it be? Like I said earlier, violin concertos are hard to write. The violin is not the loudest of instruments, particularly in its lower ranges, and not sure if you've noticed, but there's rather a lot of other violins scattered everywhere, which makes distinguishing them even harder. So I can understand why Beethoven took a more gentle style with his violin concerto. He pares a lot of the orchestration back to let his violins shine out. He also takes a slow, grand approach, but is it all a bit too grand? Does it all take a bit too long to get going? I'm sorry, it's a great work, but I don't think this is one of Beethoven's greatest. So, at equal number 7 comes another hugely famous violin concerto that you might be surprised, like I was, to find so low in this list. Yep, another classic that doesn't even make my top 5. I'm sorry, I'm an uneducated fool, or I'll just blame it on cognitive bias. Brahms, like Beethoven, aims for another slow, large, stately approach. It's brilliant, no doubt, and I feel guilty, honestly, with the marks coming out this low. I'd have totally assumed for me this would be a top 3 violin concerto, but it's maybe a little bit too overblown and overwrought for me. And equal with the Brahms comes this is a tricky little beast from Prokofiev. Prokofiev actually composed 2 decent violin concertos, but my rules here are only one piece by one composer. So Prokofiev's first pips it for me with its wonderfully erratic presentation of the violin. Is it your friend, your lover, an enemy, a psychopath? The changing drama in this violin concerto, different from what most violin concertos are. Okay, top 5, how exciting. So, at number 5 we have another tie, firstly with another Russian piece. Stravinsky, like Prokofiev, gives the violin a satanic vibrancy that fires up the performance. It's so exciting and so different from most of the other concertos here. This is a piece that makes you sit up and listen. It's also surprisingly accessible, so if you want some easier Stravinsky, you can't go wrong with this piece. And sharing fifth, we have a classic from the violin concerto repertoire. Bruch actually wrote 3 violin concertos, but this is the brilliant one, the famous one, and he must have been on fire when he composed it. It's a classic, the standard violin concerto for a reason. Loads of great writing for the violin, and those bits that force you to give movements an extra half mark. Okay, just our top 3 left, our top 3 violin concertos. So, in bronze position comes... This concerto feels like it comes out of a deepest night. The orchestra sounds so low, and that's deliberate by Sibelius, scoring everything down so the violin can sing out. It sounds from a twilight world. Sibelius' violin concerto gives you most of anything you'd ever need, and it's always been one of my favourites. So, in second place comes... Mendelssohn is one of those composers who can sound so fresh and yet be so traditional, and this is really one of the greats. A concerto that is great from beginning to end, where the orchestral writing is perfect for setting up the violin. It's just a perfect concerto and would be no surprise at the top of anyone's list. But it's not number 1, so what is? Drum roll. I struggled a bit with this one as it is technically a double violin concerto, i.e. you need 2 violins for it. However, they're still violins. For example, I didn't include Mozart's Sinfonia Concertante, which is in effect a violin and a viola concerto, because it's got a viola. But this is just violins, so it counts, and it's unarguably great. You just can't deny its top spot. I'm sure you've got your own thoughts. Do let us know them in the comment section. Otherwise, please like and subscribe.